Okay, Chag Sameach. Since it is in the end of the day Friday, and we're getting ready for the next round of festivities and eating. So we got to Bezrat Hashem remain time conscious. So I wanted to share some thoughts about
what is the time?
What is the
time?
The time now is 10 a.m. I wanted to share some thoughts about the theme of this day, and with the intention of going back as far as we can in terms of the primary themes that the Torah introduces to us in terms of what the Torah is about and what, by extension, Klal Yisrael is meant to do in the broader scheme and salvation program, as we might say, that Hashem has laid out for us in the Torah, and understand a little bit more of the significance of what it is that's going on today. So, I'm reading from the Rambam in Hilchos Beis HaBechira in Perek Beis, the laws of the temple. In Halacha Aleph, the Rambam says the following: HaMizbeach Makomo Mechuvan B'Yoser. The Mizbeach, the altar that is at the center of the temple, its place is very, very specific. Ve'ein mishanin oso mimkoma leolam, and it cannot be augmented ever. The Mizbeach needs to be placed in one specific spot. If you think about it, all of the accoutrements of the temple, all of the vessels in the temple, they're all movable. They all can be moved. In fact, some of them, it was the purpose that they should be moved in certain cases. And even the ones that it wasn't necessarily part of the service to move them, they were portable. They could be moved. The menorah, the wash basin, the Ketores altar for the incense, even the Aron HaKodesh itself, it could be moved. Now, the Mizbeach was the only feature of the temple that was meant to be stationary. V'zeh Mizbeach le'olah liYisrael, as it says in Divrei Hayamim, this is the altar of Israel. U'b'mikdash ne'ekad Yitzchak Avinu, and it is known in our tradition that the spot of the Mizbeach was the place that Yitzchak Avinu was bound by Abraham, where the event of Akedas Yitzchak took place. Shene'emar v'lech lecha al eretz HaMoriah, as God instructs Abraham to go to the land of Moriah, meaning on Mount Moriah, which is where the temple stood. U'masoras biad hakol, and it is a tradition in the hands of all. Shahamokom shebana David u'Shlomo hamizbeach v'goren Aravna, the place where David and Shlomo established the altar on the threshing ground of Aravna, the Jebusite. The story that's told in the prophets that David purchases the spot of the temple from this Jebusite man. Hu hamakom shebana bo Avraham mizbeach va'okar olav Yitzchak. This is the very spot that Avraham performed the Akedah. V'hu hamakom shebana bo Noach, and it is this place that Noach built an altar k'sheyatza min hateva, when he left the ark. V'hu hamizbeach shehikriv olav Kayin veHevel. In the story in the beginning of Bereshis, that we know that Kayin and Hevel, they both attempted to bring sacrifices, one with a little bit more success than the other. That is the spot that they brought their sacrifices. Ubo hikriv Adam Harishon Karban Kishanivra. And on that spot, Adam Harishon. This is not brought in the text of the Tanakh itself. However, there is a tradition, and this is illuminated in many places in Chazal, in Maseches Chulin, for example, that Adam Harishon brought a sacrifice when he gained his prophetic consciousness. Umisham Nivra. And from that very spot, he was created. From the spot of the altar, Adam Harishon was created. When it says that Adam was created afar min ha'adamah, that God took from the dust of the earth and created Adam, it's referring to that specific spot. This is alluded to in Mizbeach Adamah Ta'asali. The first place in the Torah where we are told about the existence of this altar is at the very end of Parshas Yisro, at the end of Matan Torah. And God says in Mizbeach Adamah Ta'aseli, that you will make me an altar of earth. Not just any earth, but this specific earth, the earth in which Adam Harishon was created from. Amru Chachamim, the sages teach, Adam mimakom kaparoso nivra, that man was created from the place of his atonement. Man is created from the place of his atonement. When we look at the theme of Yerushalayim is very much associated in very, very profound symbolism with the energy of fire. Right? We know that when we look at the four sanctified cities of Eretz Yisrael, each one of them is associated with a certain energy of one of the primordial elements, where Tiberia is very much a water type energy. Sfat in the north is very much associated with air. The word Sfat means to float. No one here should be surprised that that's what it means, right? Hebron is very much associated with the earth energy. It's a very grounded earth-like energy. And Yerushalayim is associated with the energy of fire. And we don't need to go to any mystical sources to understand this. Yerushalayim is the place of the Mikdash. In fact, we say in the Tefillah of Tisha B'Av every year that God destroyed the city in fire. Ube'eish ata atid livnosa, and with fire you will create it. You will rebuild it rather. This energy of Yerushalayim is something that is not this is not something that was introduced by the Jewish people. However, this theme is very, very much at the foundations of the creation itself. There is a very, very powerful teaching that was given over by the Chachamim of Eretz Yisrael in the generations of the Talmud, the Chachamim that compiled the Midrash Rabbah, a teaching that is brought in 3 different places when analyzing the Psukim of Sefer Bereshis. We'll start from the end. We'll start from the end and work our way backwards. In Bereshis Rabbah in Parsha Samech Hey, Siman Chav Gimel, when Yaakov Avinu is approaching Yitzchak in a slightly less than forthright way in order to receive the blessing of the firstborn, Yitzchak comes to he says to Yaakov his son, he says, "Come and approach me, and I will hug you, I will embrace you." Right? Vayorech es reach begadav, and he smells him. He wants to smell Yaakov, and the pasuk says, right? Re'ei re'ach beni. Yitzchak declares that the aroma of my son, kereach sadeh asher bercho Hashem, is like the field that God has blessed. Says the Midrash, Re'ei re'ach beni, melamed shehera lo hakadosh baruch hu beis hamikdash bonoi v'charev u'bonoi. That at that moment God showed Yitzchak Avinu the temple built, destroyed, and rebuilt. That was the vision that Yitzchak saw at that moment. And how is that alluded to in the words? Re'ei re'ach beni, see the aroma of my son. Harei banui, this is the Beis HaMikdash built. Hech mada'atama re'ach nichochi tishmeru, because the re'ach, the incense, the aroma of the sacrifices goes up to Hashem. Kereach sadeh, like the field, harei charev, this is the Beis HaMikdash destroyed. As it says in the pasuk in Micha, Sion sodei techaresh, that Sion will be a plowed over field. The Rambam tells us in Hilchos Tanis that this is one of the calamities that befell the Jewish people on Tisha B'Av after the destruction. Charosh Taronos Rufus es HaMikdash, that one of the Roman generals plowed over the area of the Beis HaMikdash lekayem, in order to fulfill this pasuk. Sion sadeh techaresh, it will be plowed over. Meaning, it's not just the building that was destroyed, but the foundation, the possibility for a building was destroyed. The pasuk continues, Asher bercho Hashem, that God has blessed. Bonai u'meshuchlal la'atid lavo. This is the temple reconstituted. Shne'emar kisham siva dunayas habracha. Pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Lamed Gimel. There God has commanded His blessing. There, meaning the Mikdash. This exact formulation is repeated a few parshios later in Midrash Rabbah, when Yaakov experiences his famous vision, the Sulam Yaakov, Jacob's ladder. Vayikatz Yaakov mishnaso, Yaakov awakens from his dream, this very powerful vision of the messengers of God going up and down the ladder. Says the Midrash, Melamed Shehera HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God showed Yaakov, Beis HaMikdash, Bonoi, Charev u'Bonoi. The Beis HaMikdash built, destroyed, and then rebuilt again. How is this alluded to in Yaakov's words? When Yaakov awakens from his dream, he says, Ma norah hamakom hazeh. How lofty is this place? How awesome is this place? Ma norah hamakom hazeh harei banui. This is the Beis HaMikdash built. As it says, Norah Elohim mimikdashecha, that the awesomeness of Hashem is emanated from His temple. Ein zeh, this isn't, harei charev, the absence. Yaakov is feeling the void, the vacuous void of the lack of the Beis HaMikdash. Vezeh shar hashamayim, and this is the gates of heaven, as it says in the pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Mem Zayin, Ki chizak brichei sha'arayich, that God has strengthened the gates. the simple understanding of that pasuk is that God has strengthened the gates of Jerusalem. There's a wall in Jerusalem, and there are gates to get in. But on a deeper level, this is not the gates of Jerusalem in order to get into Jerusalem, but it is the gate. It is the dimensional gate, which Yerushalayim is between one dimension and another. God will strengthen the gate. The Beis Hamikdash is the gate. It is the portal. It is the gateway between one dimension and another. We said we're going to work backwards. Where is the first time that this formulation appears in the Midrash Rabbah? All the way back in the beginning, in Parsha Beis, when we're dealing with the creation of the world itself. The creation of the world itself, and we see the description of the primordial existence of the world as it's coming into being. Rabbi Abav, Rabbi Chia Rabbah, Mitchilas Briyaso Shel Olam Sofa Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Maasein Shel Tzadikim B'Maasein Shel Rishayim. God foresaw all of the wicked deeds of the world and all the righteous deeds of the world. The Haaretz, Dechein Sofa Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Beis Hamikdash Bonoi V'Charev U'Bonoi. And in the same token, God saw the temple built, destroyed, and rebuilt. As it says, Bereishis bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. Harei Banui. That's the Beis Hamikdash built. As it says in Sefer Yeshayahu, Lintoa Shamayim V'Yisod Oretz. God has come to spread the heavens and to build the earth. And in context, that is referring to the reestablishment of Yerushalayim. The reestablishment of Yerushalayim after the coming destruction, which Yeshayahu is telling us about. The destruction will come. However, God will reestablish the earth. Not the earth in the actual cosmos, but the heavens and the earth as it is embodied in Yerushalayim. The haaretz haisa tohu vavo, that the earth was in chaos and void. Harei charev, this is the Beis Hamikdash destroyed. As it says, Ra'isi as haaretz v'hinei tohu vavo. I have seen the earth and it is in chaos and void. This is Yirmiyahu looking at the coming destruction of Jerusalem. Yirmiyahu was watching the siege of Yerushalayim take place. Vayomer Elohim yihi or, and God declares, let there be light. Harei bonai m'shuchlal la'atid lavo. This is the temple reestablished at the climax of history. As it says in the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Kumi uri kiva orech. Come, ascend, because your light has come. Your light referring to the Beis Hamikdash. What we're being told over here is a very, very powerful idea in terms of what is the theme and energy in which Yerushalayim embodies. This is a primordial energy that is at the foundations of what the world is in its very nature. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu established a pattern within the world of being built, of descending into chaos, and re-emerging in a higher developed form of being built. That is the nature of the world. Bereishis bara Elohim. God created, the haaretz haisa tohu vavohu, and then there's chaos and void. Vayomer Elohim yihi or. But that transforms into a higher order of being. And indeed, the entire pattern of creation itself, vayi erev, vayi voker, and all the Balei Apshat ask, how could there be morning and night in the beginning of creation? The sun isn't created until the fourth day. What's the erev and boker? What's the morning and night? But the boker and erev are not morning and night as we experience, the setting sun and the rising sun, the moon coming out. That's not the erev and boker. Erev milashon ta'aroves, of a jumble, of a mixed, unordered state of being. That's what we experience at night. When the sun goes down, you can't tell that there's no discerning or distinction between things. The sun goes down, everything is a dark mesh of things. Boker, in the morning, right? The morning, levaker, to discern. Because that's what we can do in the morning. In the morning, when there's light out, we're able to have discerning distinction and order. Vayi erev, vayi voker, the entire pattern of creation is going from one state of a jumble and a chaos into more and more order. And this, the epicenter of creation, which is Yerushalayim, and which the epicenter of Yerushalayim being the Mizbeach itself, embodies this energy. And this is why Yerushalayim is so much associated with the energy of Eish. Ki ba'eish charavta, because with fire you destroyed it, to ba'eish ata atid livnosa, and with fire you will rebuild it. Because Eish is a very tricky, it's a very tricky energy. Fire on the one hand is extremely, extremely destructive. It's a very destructive energy. However, in order to be able to build anything, in order to be able to transform anything, we need the energy of fire. Fire is both destructive and transformative at the same time. And it is this energy that was, again, established at the very foundations of creation, the very, very beginning of creation. It is this energy which is embodied in Yerushalayim. I want to share with you a very, very, very interesting distinction that we find in one teaching of Chazal, but how it's given over to us in the Bavli, in the Babylonian Talmud, versus how it's given over in the Yerushalmi, in the Jerusalem Talmud. We all know that it is the halacha that when Jewish people pray, we physically turn towards a certain direction. We physically turn towards Jerusalem. The Bavli in Maseches Brachos on Daf Lamed Amud Aleph gives the following teaching.
I did see you right there.
If someone is outside the land of Israel and they come time to pray, they should face towards the land of Israel. Right? If someone is inside the land of Israel, a person should turn towards Jerusalem. If they're in Haifa, they turn south. If they're in Beersheba, they turn north. If they're in Tel Aviv, they turn east, etc., etc. The entire Jewish people are turning their hearts towards one place. Where do we learn this from? Where do we learn this idea from? That all hearts of the Jewish people turn towards Jerusalem. As it says in the Pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Kimigdal David Tzavarech, your neck is like the Tower of David, Banui Letel Piot, which has been built Letel Piot. What does that mean? What does that word Tel Piot mean? Tel Shekol Pios Ponimbo, that all mouths turn towards that place. The Tower of David is the place where all the mouths in the world, meaning when people pray, they all turn towards that place. That's the source for how we understand that with prayer, everyone turns towards this one place, the Migdal David. However, when the Yerushalmi gives over this teaching, there's a very, very there's a subtle difference in how the Yerushalmi gives over this teaching. Yerushalmi in Maseches Brachos, in the same Perek Vav, it gives the whole teaching into Kol Yisrael Mechuvanim Es Libam L'Makom Echad. The whole Jewish people are turn their hearts towards one place, and ask the Gemara the same question. My Kara, where do we learn this from? Where do we learn this idea from that all Jews all over the world should turn their hearts and their mouths towards one place? Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the pasuk in Malachim, Hu ha'heichal lifenai. This is the Heichal, referring to the Beis Hamikdash. This is the temple before me. But this is a very strange way of saying before me. Typically, we say before me, we say lifonai. But here it's spelled slightly differently. Lifinai, with a shva under the pei. Lifinai. So says the Gemara, shekol hapanim ponim lo, that all faces turn towards it. Lifinai, for the purpose of turning toward it. This is the Heichal. This temple that I'm building is so that all people can turn towards this place and pray. Says the Gemara, Ad Kedon Bivinyana. This is a good source for why you should pray towards the temple when the temple is built. Minayin Bechor Bono. How do we know that we should turn towards this place? Even when the temple is destroyed, you should turn towards this place. Amr Rabbi Abun, the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Banoi Letel Piot. That this place is Tel Piot, Tel Shekola Pios Ponimbo. How does the Gemara know that this pasuk is referring to the Beis Hamikdash in a destroyed state? Not built, but destroyed. Tel Piot. What does the word tel mean, Rabbosai? What does the word tel mean?
Pile.
A pile. Tel means a pile, specifically a mound of rubble. That's what it means. It's a very rare word in Lashon HaKodesh, but it appears, I believe it appears only once in the Torah. I could be wrong about that. But definitely the primary place where it appears is in Sefer Devarim, Yud Gimel, where the Torah talks about the din of an Ir Hanidachas, which is a very, very extreme situation in which an entire city begins worshiping idols, and the entire city is destroyed. And not only is the city destroyed, but it can never be rebuilt. And says the pasuk in Devarim Yud Gimel, Va'isa tel olam, it will be a pile of rubble forever, lo yibaneh, it can never be rebuilt. So when the pasuk says tel piot tel, shekol hapiot ponim lo, that it is the tel which everyone turns towards, it's talking about the mound of destruction which everyone turns toward. Not the Beis Hamikdash built in its built state, but even in its destructed state. And this, I believe, is a very, very profound idea in terms of what it is that we are aiming toward when we all aim our spiritual energy, our spiritual focus towards Yerushalayim. It is not only that we are facing toward a built and established temple, but it is also that we're turning toward the destructed state, the state where things are not the way that they're supposed to be. But it is the state of destruction which allows a higher state of being to emerge from it. The tel piot, it is the mound of rubble, so to speak. Literally. The mound of rubble which the whole earth turns toward. When Yeshayahu tells us, Ki beisi beis tefillah yikarei l'chol ha'amim, that my house is the place where all people turn toward in prayer, it is this is the prayer of the entire world. The prayer of the entire world is the hope and the yearning that these cycles of building and falling into destruction, falling into a state of chaos which is not as preferable, but then being able to reemerge again in a higher, more profound, more refined, more elevated state, that is the prayer of the entire world. The prayer of the entire world is that this cycle should be able to continue, a perpetual state of rejuvenation. And this is why Kol Apios Ponimbo, all mouths in the world, when they pray, they are praying towards this place. They are praying towards this epicenter. And on Yom Yerushalayim is this day where we are able to we were given a gift by the Creator to be able to re-access this energy, not just in a theoretical context, but in a very practical, concrete way. The most concrete that we can experience it. The Mishnah in Maseches Sukkah tells us that the lulav, this is in Perek Gimel of Hilchos Sukkah, of the Mishnah in Sukkah, that b'mikdash hayunotlim kol shiva, that in the mikdash the lulav was taken all 7 days of Sukkot. Ubemedina, and outside of the mikdash, it was only taken for 1 day. As we know, the primary mitzvah of the Torah to take a lulav is on the first day of Sukkot. However, in the mikdash, it's a mitzvah from the Torah to take the lulav all 7 days. The Gemara tells us that Reb Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was the leader of the generation during the destruction of the Second Temple, he was metaken. He instituted that we should take that everywhere in the world should take the lulav every 7 days, which is what, in fact, we do. As we all know, we all take the lulav for the entire duration of Sukkot. Says the Gemara, why did he do this? Why did he decide that this was the right thing to do, that everyone in the world should take the lulav for all 7 days, like they did in the mikdash? Because zeicher the mikdash. So we should remember the mikdash. Uminolan da avdinan zeicher the mikdash. Ask the Gemara, how do we know? Gemara in Rosh Hashanah asked, how do we know that we should be taking the lulav? Excuse me. How do we know that there is this idea of making a zeicher la mikdash, of making a remembrance for the mikdash? So the Gemara quotes the pasuk from Yirmiyahu. Ki aleh arukalach umimasayach erpaech neum Adonai. When I will bring healing to you, and I will remove all of your wounds. Ki nidacha karulach, because you have been referred to, you Yerushalayim have been referred to as the rejected one. Tzion hi doresh ein la. There is no one seeking out Tzion. There is no one seeking out Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, Michlal debai drisha. We see from here that people should be seeking out Yerushalayim. It is not the ideal state that people aren't seeking out Yerushalayim. It's not ideal. People should be seeking it out. Meaning, we should all be conducting ourselves as if Yerushalayim is built. Even though Yerushalayim isn't actually built and it's in its ideal state, we should be conducting ourselves as if. Because we want to embody and behave and act in through the specific consciousness, the specific awareness that this is the goal. The goal is to produce a new state of being built. Tzion hi doresh ein la. Which is why for the past 19 centuries, every single Jew all over the world, whether they're in Morocco or Poland or Lithuania or Iraq or the entire spread of the diaspora, every single Jew over the past 19 centuries has been conducting themselves as Zecher LaMikdash, remembering the state in which the temple was Meshuchlalu Banoi, was completely rebuilt. Because that has been the explicit goal of the Jewish people for a very, very long time. To be able to get back to this state of Banoyim Meshuchlal that has been reconstituted in a higher, elevated, more refined state. Wow. Says the Rambam, what does this mean, B'mikdash Shiva, that they would take the lulav in the Mikdash for all 7 days? It doesn't mean the Mikdash, literally the temple. When the priests were in the temple courtyard, they would be walking around with their lulavs. No, the Mikdash is the entire Jerusalem. All of Jerusalem is the Mikdash. We say this every week, by the way. It's so easy to skip over the words, but we say this every time. In Lecha Dodi, Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha. The temple of God, which is the city of kingship. It's not just the temple itself. The temple is the epicenter. The temple is the epicenter, obviously. But the Mikdash at large is the entire city of Yerushalayim. And just like at the beginning of history, mankind descended into a dystopian abyss when they tried to build an Ir Umigdal, when all of humanity came together to build a city and a tower, with the explicit purpose of disconnecting the world from its creator, and God had to intervene and say, this can't go down, I have to put a stop to this. And Avraham Avinu came along in that generation to reverse that trend. We also have to build an Ir Umigdal, a city and a tower. But a city and a tower not for the purpose of disconnecting the creation from its creator, but for the purpose of reconnecting the creation to its creator. As we saw in the Midrash, Ki chizak brichei sha'arayich. The temple is the gateway, it's the portal. It's the gateway of connection between the upper worlds and the lower worlds, between the creator and his creation. And this is the theme that we are reconnecting to in Yerushalayim. It's not just that we won a war. It's not that there were tremendous miracles. That just highlights the crazy, supernatural character of what it is that we're experiencing. But the thing that we're honing in on over here is that Yerushalayim is the universal world-saving energy that all of humanity, for sure the Jewish people consciously, but all of humanity has been yearning for from the beginning. Ki chizak brichei sha'arayich. God created the world with this energy of the potential for perpetual flourishing, for perpetual rejuvenation, for perpetual renewal. And that energy, it emanates from this place. Adam Harishon was created from the place of the Mizbeach, meaning from the place where the heavenly fire comes down, it consumes and brings rejuvenation. That's it. That's the epicenter of creation, where the heavenly fire is able to come down and produce its rejuvenation. The seemingly destructive energy is able to bring about a massive, massive renewal and rejuvenation. And Bezrat Hashem, through the connecting to the simcha and the recognition of the nes, the Jewish people, right, the Yehudim, the ones who confess and give thanks. That's what we're here for. We're here to make it explicit what is going on. We're here to make it very, very explicit, to say it, B'kol Gadol, in a very explicit voice, this is what's going on. And to the extent that we commune with this avoda, with this important work, we should merit to see the continued flourishing of Jerusalem, not just in the outer Jerusalem of the Ir, but also the Migdal, also the tower. Bezrat Hashem, speedily in our days.